What's up guys, Alex Wallace here from Wallace Training Systems, and this is how to low bar squat. First, let's define the low bar squat. Simply put, it's when the bar sits lower on your back. But just because we can define it doesn't mean that we can precisely do it, and that's what the rest of this video is about. The first thing I want to talk about is hand placement, and this is highly individualized. Oftentimes people will come very narrow, some people will go a little bit wider. That really depends on things like how tight your shoulders are and how wide your back is. But there's a couple principles that I take when I do the low bar squat and when I teach the low bar squat. Anecdotally, I find that with the low bar squat, you have to grab it slightly wider. And here's a pro tip. When you're low bar squatting, sometimes when you allow your thumb to come around the bar, it'll put a lot of pressure on your wrist. Contrarily, I actually go thumb out of the bar. I use my hands as a clamp to more or less press the bar against my rear delt and slightly lean forward. This takes a lot of pressure off my wrist and allows me to low bar squat pain-free. Secondly, let's talk about torso angle. With the low bar squat, the bar, naturally as we defined it, sits slightly lower on your back. If you stay completely vertical, straight up and down, oftentimes that'll be uncomfortable because the bar will be more or less sliding down your back. So what I recommend is that you take a slight forward lean, and you can actually help yourself do this by looking about 6 to 8 feet in front of you. So your eyes are actually looking slightly down instead of straight ahead. Contrary to this position with a high bar squat, typically how I do it and how I teach that is I put the bar right on top of the traps, I look straight ahead, and I'm standing straight up and down. We're not gonna get too far into that. I'm just trying to show you the contrast between the low bar and high bar squat. Next, let's talk about foot placement and stance width. Just like hand placement, this is very individualized. But what I recommend and what I find with the low bar squat is that people feel a little more comfortable and a little more balanced with their feet slightly wider than the high bar squat. Additionally, you should angle your toes out at a slight angle, nothing too excessive, but again, a little wider stance, toes slightly angled out, gives a lot of people, myself included, a little more balance when low bar squatting. Real quick guys, if you've watched the video so far and you like it, don't forget to like the video. If you've been watching our content for a little bit and you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Let's talk about actually performing the movement. Now that you're set up, you have to actually squat. Squatting, sometimes people say, oh, you need to push your butt back first, or oh, you need to let your knees come forward first. I actually think they should both occur at the same time. So after you set up, your hips will come back and your knees will come forward in conjunction with each other as you hit depth. Depth is when your hip joint and knee joint are in line, or your hip joint is just slightly below that. That's depth. If you can squat lower, by all means. We have a video all about how to maximize your squat. I'll link it somewhere in the video in the screen above. Click that video if you want to learn more about squatting to depth. But for the low bar squat and for any squat, you should aim to get to parallel. After you've hit depth, it's as simple as just standing up. So you let your hips come forward and you extend at your knees and you come to the standing position. Just a couple of points when it comes to squatting that I see a lot of people make, a couple errors that I see a lot of people make, is number one, what's called valgus, or your knees caving inside of your toes. You want to make sure that when you're squatting, both descending and ascending, your knees stay in line with your toes. Secondly, I want to talk about excessive butt wink, or when your spine basically caves under excessively during the bottom of the squat. You can avoid this by basically changing your foot angle and your stance width, and also kind of having somebody watch you to make sure that you're squatting to depth but avoiding excessive butt wink. All right guys, if you like the video, don't forget to like the video. If you're interested in seeing more content, make sure you subscribe. I'm Alex Wallace from Wallace Training Systems, and thanks for watching.